What am I saying? What's up, guys? I had a weird ass reading month and I'm gonna talk about it and you're gonna listen. Let's bring on the books. So the first book that I read in November that took me 2 weeks was The Mysteries of Adolfo by Anne Radcliffe. And I've been talking about this book literally since I started this channel. The Mysteries of Adolfo. This is a book I've been trying to read for a while. It's the most famous Gothic romance and totally popularized the genre. Oh my God, was it a challenging read. I don't read a lot of classics for many a reason, but I've been really enjoying the Gothic style of writing and I kind of wanted to see where it came from. I'm always here to support the female writers in the past that had a huge hand in creating the literature world that we are in today. This book is essentially about a girl whose parents die and she's sent to live with her aunt, who then marries a villain, Montoni, who then whisks them away, not like a romantic way, like a bad way, like whisks them away to a castle in the middle of Italy where no one can find them. And she like spends the whole time trying not to go crazy and like escape. This book is basically a really long-winded Scooby-Doo story with the thesis of men suck and it's really hard to be a woman in the 18th century, which like valid. Anne Radcliffe straight up talks to you at multiple points during this book. We'll be hanging out with Emily, who is our main protagonist for most of it, and then she'll just start a chapter with like, all right, reader, you're probably wondering about Valancourt, who's like her lover, kind of. You're kind of sitting there like, oh, I guess I should care about Valancourt now, and then we go and find out what he's doing. She does this multiple times, and it's very funny. This is a long book. It's like 700 pages, but it's not like Brandon Sanderson 700 pages. It is dense. I literally couldn't even read it before bed because I would be just tired enough that my brain would wander and I would read the same paragraph 30 times and not have any idea what's going on. So this is like not for the faint of heart, but honestly, Anne Radcliffe's wit and style and humor and her opinions are truly some of the funniest and best I have ever experienced in a book. I really felt like I understood Anne Radcliffe as a person, like writing this book, even more than I did Emily. I don't think a single book has really like captured my attention in the same way as this one did, if that makes sense. I don't know if I would read it again, honestly, maybe in a few years. And you're not even in the castle for the first 200 freaking pages. The first 200 pages. We're just like watching Emily's parents die and she's sad, and then she's sad with her aunt, and her aunt just sucks in every way. And then eventually Montoni shows up and takes them away to a castle, and then we're in a castle for like 400 pages. But the last like 200 pages are also not in the castle. So I think it's really funny because Radcliffe is clearly poking fun at the Gothic genre. She's absolutely making fun of all like the ghost stories, that feeling of isolation. She's absolutely poking holes in it. If you're like willing to put in the time and energy for this one, it is so worth it because it truly is like the best accidental feminist read I've ever experienced. And Radcliffe's opinions and the way that she writes, while sometimes I wanted to like claw my eyes out of my head because I don't read a lot of classics and it was really hard. The way that you enjoy a fantasy is very different than how you enjoy this. Like you enjoy this because Radcliffe's writing is so specific. The narrative itself is like kind of blah, but the twist at the end is very fun. I just loved it. That's it. That's what I have to say about The Mysteries of Adolfo. It was a wild ride. Even though for most of it I feel like I just wanted it to end, I had so much fun reading it. I'm not gonna sit here and be like, oh, the themes of blah 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 blah, because I don't care. If you want to read this book, you're gonna read it because it is very funny, and it is a great example of how feminist literature had to be presented during the 1700s. I think it's just a great historical piece and is so worth it. So if you read it, let me know because I'd love to commiserate, but also enjoy talking about this book more. Okay, we're gonna move on. The next book I read was Poison Study by Maria V. Snyder. This is a great fantasy. This was my favorite book when I was a teenager. And so after Mysteries of Adolfo, I needed a palate cleanse. I needed to read something that required like literally next to no effort. And so I've read this book, I mean, you can see, I've read this book probably 10 times. I know this story backwards and forwards. It was like reuniting with a lost friend. And I did not realize this was written in like 2005. You know, you're always nervous going back to old things that you've read as you've like grown up and learned what is appropriate to say and what is not appropriate. Like watching movies that I loved as a kid, sometimes it sucks because they don't hold up well and you can't really enjoy them the same way or even talk about them in the same way anymore. And so I was really hoping that wouldn't happen with this one, and it didn't. It's like quite progressive for 2005, honestly, and it held up impeccably. The story is super interesting. The political system is like really simple but really engaging, and the romance, mwah, it's so sweet and tumultuous, and it's like just spicy enough. Yeah, it's good. It's fun. The romance part of it is very fun. Oh, the plot of the story is that Yelena, who is our main character, she is an orphan who was taken in by this family, General Brazel, who is one of the like 8 generals under the commander of this like political system. She murders his son for very good reason, I'll tell you, and is sent to prison. After sitting in prison for almost a year, she thinks she's about to get executed. She winds up getting pulled out and is offered a spot as the commander's food taster to make sure that no one tries to poison him. It's a super simple political and magic system, and the narration is very straightforward, like almost too much so. I definitely felt like a lot of what Snyder was saying in her narration could have been shown through like more action or dialogue, but honestly, maybe it's just because of nostalgia value, but like I really do think it's a good book. The third book that I read, I finally read Mistborn, The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. And guys, I loved it. 5-star read. And to be fair, it was a 5-star prediction, but like, Brandon Sanderson, you've done it again. If I had to critique anything about this book before I get into every single thing that I loved about it, it's that it takes a while for the plot to really start, in my opinion. But during that time, we're really getting to know the 2 main characters, and we also get a very, very thorough understanding of the magic system, because this is a little bit more complicated than Poison Study is. The fighting within the magic system, you really, really have to understand what's going on, because the second they start throwing these Mistborn into fights, if you don't know what's going on, you will not know what this fight looks like. And the way that Brandon Sanderson writes, it's like important to know how the person fights, because that changes as they grow as a person. It's so cool. It's so good. But yeah, if I had to give it a critique, that would be it. But like, truly, I don't think it would be as enjoyable if we didn't have that entire first volume dedicated to like really making sure we understand the world that we're in, the political system we're in, the magic system that we're going to be dealing with, and the characters that we're supposed to care about. So yes, I love the political system. The conversation that Sanderson is having about class hierarchies and colonialism, and like, fuck colonialism, first of all. This is such a great commentary on it, because it's very clear that's what he's talking about, but it's not heavy-handed, and it doesn't feel like he's trying to preach anything to you. It's like we're actually watching just like how colonialism impacts everybody who lives in a city in a country. I think the loveliest thing about his writing is how accessible he makes these like massive 800-page fantasies. And I think that's why Brandon Sanderson's books are so like universally loved. I just think it's really lovely, and he always has some strong female characters as his forefront, which I think is really great. We don't see that a lot with male fantasy writers, so that's always a nice treat. Look, this book right here, I'm gonna have to return to the library eventually, but this book right here, it will make you laugh, you will cry, and once you hit volume 4, just like set aside 5 or 6 hours, because you're gonna finish the book. You're not gonna put it down once you hit that part. Make sure you have a night to yourself so you don't have to get interrupted, because this book is fantastic. I literally am so excited to read the next one. So yeah, if you're looking for a very fun new fantasy with some lovely villains, lots of gray, like moral gray area to make you really ponder things for yourself, I have nothing more to say. Actually, I have a lot more to say, but it would be pretty much the same reiteration of what I've already said, so I'm gonna be done with this for now. And then the fourth book that I read that's much less exciting than all the other ones was I read The Body by Bill Bryson. This was my audiobook pick for the month. It took me a while to read. It's a pretty long audiobook. And the short version of my review of this is that if you want to know more about your own body and or the politics and very wild, horrible things that doctors have done so that we can know what we do know about the body, this is it. This is the book. If you don't care about any of that, or you don't really like biology or medicine, don't read this. This book was sold to me as being very funny and compulsively readable. That's an actual quote. And I don't agree. There were like maybe 4 jokes throughout this entire book. While he had a lot of good anecdotes that really added to the information he was sharing, that just tells me it's like a decent nonfiction read. Like that's what all nonfiction should be doing, is like using anecdotes to show the importance of things, to like help people learn the information. I wish I liked it more. I think it was incredibly well researched. I think most nonfiction books are pretending to be what this book is in the sense of like their research. I find a lot of nonfictions now are like opinion pieces, very similar to how a lot of journalism now is a lot of like op-eds instead of cold hard journalistic fact. Most of the information honestly like went in one ear and out the other. It was good. If you care about that stuff, I think you'll probably really like it, but I'm like 50-50 on it. I guess I'm glad I read it. Would I have liked to listen to something else? Probably, but that's just me. It was a good month. It was a wild month, but it was a good month. If you haven't seen my December TBR, I had tarot cards pick my TBR and I created a whole new game and it's very fun, so you should go check it out. I'll put a link up here. Thanks for sticking around for my November wrap up. I hope you all had a good time. If you did, don't forget to like and hit that subscribe button. Go check out my channel for other book related content. I will see you all next time. Bye!